Okay, there we go. So you don't have to be on, you can just interrupt me anytime you want if you have a question, okay?
Thank you.
All right, so it keeps doing that. The Bioethics Institute is like an umbrella. The Institute is an umbrella over several different programs. We have one of those programs is our graduate program, our Master of Arts. Then we have a bioethics minor. We have our community outreach. We have a lecture series, and we have the O'Malley Chair. The O'Malley Chair is a scholar in residence. Sometimes the O'Malley Chair came from another university and was only with us for a semester at a time. But right now, our own Dr. Roberto DeLauro, who is the director of the Bioethics Institute, he has just appointed the O'Malley Chair for a 3-year term. So he's now our scholar in residence. So the Bioethics Institute is the bigger entity, but underneath it, we have these other things: the graduate program, undergraduate minor, campus outreach, and then community education, which is our lecture program. So the interesting thing about our graduate program is we're multidisciplinary, and that means you already know this, but you can be a theologian and do bioethics. You can be a scientist and do bioethics. You can be a writer and do bioethics. Or I've had film students come in for bioethics. So it's multidisciplinary, which makes it very interesting to be a student, because we don't have a bioethics major at this university. So it's not like we have on staff all these bioethicists who teach classes. We have several professors at LMU who teach our classes, but we get to go out into the community and pick people who are actually working in the field to come teach our classes. So we have clinical ethicists from local hospitals. We've had local regulators come in and talk about policy and teach a policy class. We have lawyers, healthcare lawyers, who teach our law and bioethics class. So that's interesting because you can get subject experts. And in bioethics, things are always changing. So it's important to have a faculty who are current in all the issues. You can imagine pandemic has been like Disneyland, right, for bioethics. And there are so many things to talk about all the time. But even in the last 2 years, all our information has changed. And if you don't have somebody who's actually working in the field, they're not going to be coming from an accurate foundation of knowledge for the students. So we're very lucky that we, as an institute, we can pull from many different places, and we're not confined by just local faculty who happen to be around teaching undergraduate classes. We are campus-based. So of course, we taught our classes online for almost 2 years because of COVID. But in general, not in general, but like absolutely starting in this fall, all our classes will be taught in person. We have a seminar room here in our little corner of University Hall, and all our classes are taught in that same room. It holds 22 people, but the classes are generally between 5 and 10. The interesting thing about that, from a student's point of view, there's no hiding. You've either done the reading or you haven't, and everyone's going to know based on your conversation. But you really have a chance to get into the meat of the subject. You're not sitting in a room of 20 or 30 people and letting everyone talk around you. You actually are engaging with the professors and your fellow students. So the seminar style classes are great. And we have a scholarly community because we're a small program. We all know what each other's doing. Our professors are writing and publishing. Oh my gosh, I published so much during COVID, it's crazy. And we help our students publish as well. There are some student-based journals that are appropriate for student work. We have a hub, our own website I'll show you, or maybe you've looked at it, where we publish student work. So it's definitely a scholarly community. And we are able to take our students with us to conferences. Of course, the last 2 years, it was basically paying for their registration so they could do a Zoom conference. But we have some in-person conferences coming up next year. And I personally want to take a bunch of students with me to Salt Lake City for the conference. So that would be really fun. And we have some monies to do that for our students. If a second year student identifies a conference in their particular interest that is related to bioethics, they can apply for funding to attend that conference. And it would be registration and travel expenses. So up to, I think it's up to $1,000. I think that's what it is, up to $1,000. And it's not guaranteed, but you can make a pitch that this is who I am, this is what I'm studying, and here's this great conference, and I want to go there because it'll be good for me as a scholar. And, you know, we can do that. Sometimes, like I said, our professors actually work in the field. For example, I do work in the field. I work for the FDA and for another research ethics organization. Sometimes we can bring our students with us to work so you can see what it is that we do. Some of our students have shadowed clinical ethicists in hospitals. Others have attended national conferences. And for example, when I was doing that oral history project, some of my students came with me as my assistants and were filming and helping me do the background research on the people that I needed to interview. So there's a lot of ways that our students can interact with this bioethics community that we have here in our little corner of LMU. So you know a lot of this already because you've done your research on the program. It's 10 courses are for the Master of Arts, 2 years full-time, or there can be a good reason to do the entire degree in 12 or 15 months. I don't recommend it, but there are situations where it might be the thing to do. So we do have one student right now who's just finishing the entire degree in 1 year in between her undergrad and medical school. She's the first one who did it. She also says she wouldn't recommend it, but she said it was hard. She also said that it wasn't quite as fun as it could have been because it was rare. They were very interesting classes, but the classes are so deep, they need some time to, you know, soak in your head. You need to sit with this material for a while in the most ideal situations. But like I said, sometimes there's a reason to compress things, and we're open to that. And then just so you know, there is a graduate certificate, which is not anything that you're looking at, but that's just, it's 4 graduate classes instead of 10. You can do it in 1 year if you wanted to, but it's a certificate, it's not a Master of Arts degree. And that's more geared towards professionals. We have a chaplain who's doing that right now. But anyway, that's the overview of the graduate programs. So here's what a schedule would look like for somebody entering this fall. You take 2 classes each semester, and then you take 2 classes in the summer, and then you take 2 classes the following academic year in the fall and spring. So each class meets once a year. Each class meets once a week from 7:15, I think, to 9:45. So if you can have a job, you could be working and then go to school at night. I would not suggest a full-time job and going to school with 2 classes a semester, because I will tell you very honestly, each class takes at least 10 hours a week of study. So if you've got 2 classes, that's 20 hours a week that you have to spend studying. And And in the beginning, because it's a new field for you and you're still learning the vocabulary, it might take you longer in the beginning because you're learning the language and you've got to kind of figure out the flow of the papers and the kinds of books that you're going to be reading. So it could take longer in the beginning. Also, when you have a paper due, you're going to have more hours than just 10 a week. So a rule of thumb is at least 10 hours a week per class. So you can imagine if you're working 40 hours a week and then trying to get your 20 hours in, that's a really pretty rigorous week. I just want to be honest about that. So that's in the fall and the spring. That's what the schedule looks like. Each class meets once a week and you're going to have 2 classes and they meet on either Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday night. In the summer, we have a summer school, 2 summer school sessions, and each session is only 6 weeks. And you take only 1 class in that session. So the summer school session usually begins 1 week after graduation, which is the Monday. So, okay, at LMU, the graduate graduation is always on Mother's Day. Okay, so that's how I know when it is on the calendar if I don't know the exact date. It's always on Mother's Day. And then there's 1 week of no classes, and then summer session starts the next week. So summer session starts at the end of May, the first one, and ends at the end of June. And then the second session starts at the beginning of July and ends the first week of August. Those are 2 6-week sessions, and those classes meet twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So for the first session, you would take, depending on what order we offer it, I think this summer in 22, we're offering clinical ethics first. So that would be on Tuesdays and Thursday nights for 6 weeks. And then immediately after, research ethics starts that for the second 6 weeks. Even though research ethics is an elective, we select it for you. We insist that all of our students take research ethics as one of their electives. So actually you have only 2 true electives. You take both of those in the spring, and that depends on the availability of faculty, because sometimes there's visiting faculty at LMU from somewhere that may have an expertise that's very appropriate and would be ashamed to not take advantage of them while they're here at LMU. So it just depends on the faculty availability, but we've had some very interesting ones. It's really too bad you missed Jim Giordano, a neuroscientist. He was insane. I had so much fun, but I was never more tired in my life trying to keep that man entertained. But he's a neuroscientist neuroethicist at Georgetown, and he was also a neuroethicist for DARPA. So you can imagine the stories that he had to tell. That was very interesting. And so when he was here, he taught neuroscience and neuroethics, and that was what the elective was that year. We had also an elective was disability studies, disability rights. Right now there's one on biotechnology is the elective. We've had social justice and health. So, just kind of a rotating cycle. So that's what the class schedule looks like. The application process, you already know this. Our priority deadline is March 15th. What that means is that the completed applications that we have on March 15th are the first batch that goes to the admissions committee. And from that first batch, we form the core of the cohort. Our cohorts are usually around 7. It would be nice if, I think 10 is a good number. I like 10. If you have a lot more than 10, it's hard to have those really good conversations I was talking about. So anyway, you get a slight advantage by having your application in by March 15th, because then you're considered as part of the core. You're the core of the cohort. We do look at applications all the way up until the week before classes start. But we only accept the people who are going to augment or enhance the existing cohort that we already chose, right? So there's, for example, we usually have a couple priests at any given time in one of our cohorts. I wouldn't want there to be 5 priests because that changes the whole flavor of what is going on for the cohort, right? So later we would try to augment and support and create the best cohort possible so that you're going to be with these people for 2 years, right? So we want it to be a functional relationship between all of you. There's scholarships and grants available, merit-based and need-based. There is an additional application. You can see it on our website. You can ask me about it later. The completed applications get first shot at the money. So it's good to have that application in by April 7th. But also when we admit you, we also offer sometimes a scholarship or a grant as part of so you have that to think about as part of your decision-making process. For us, it's best to be open about what your needs are, because, this is a Jesuit university, which is, why I love being here. We're trying to be as open and inclusive as possible. So that's why we have need-based and merit-based scholarships. But you have to let us know where you are on that spectrum for us to help take care of your needs. The application is just the way to do it, right? It's your first step. Any questions so far?
I did have a question regarding, I don't know if you're going to address it later, but about what time are decisions for admissions, do they come out?
That's a good question. I would say by April 10th, you would have heard. Yeah, you would hear by April 10th. Are you considering other places?
Honestly, no.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, so super fingers crossed.
All right, but I would say April 10th is the latest.
Okay.
Right. So if we have your application on March 15th, and you're the first batch going to the admissions committee, so March 15th, it takes me. So what I do is I look at every application and make sure it's as strong as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And if I think you need to supplement it with something, I tell you. For example, I might say, Alexandra, this is really great, but the old lady that you've lived next to for 30 years since you were, or 20 years since you were a baby, she cannot write you a letter of recommendation. You need to get something from a professor. I might say that, right? And then, because part of my job is to make sure you have the strongest application possible before it goes to the admissions committee. So when I get the applications on March 15th, and I spend a few days combing through them and making sure they're complete. I have a question. Sometimes I've contacted a student and said, your personal statement is wonderful, but since I know you from talking to you about your life background, you really should talk about XYZ that you mentioned to me. That would strengthen your personal statement, right? So I do that for every single person. I make sure your application is as strong as it can be before it goes. But anyway, if that said, if by March 20th, I get the applications to the admissions committee, you might have them finished by March 27th. So you might hear on March 28th.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's a pretty quick turnaround.
It's a pretty quick turnaround. Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of it's because we have to make, decisions. We have to make staffing decisions. I need to plan our budget, all that stuff. So, yeah, anyway, long answer, short question, but it's a pretty quick turnaround.
Okay, that sounds good. And then as far as like elective enrollments, is the I just from personal experience in undergraduate, there was a lot of like competition just to enroll in a class. How is that at LMU?
No, so because we're a small program,
Mm-hmm.
we save seats in every class
Okay.
for our students. So we have there'll be the room fits, well, I would say the room fits 15 comfortably, but you'll only have 10 to 12 bioethics students. So we save the seats for our bioethics students, and then other graduate students sometimes take our classes as electives for their program. A lot of the philosophy students take bioethics classes as an elective. A lot of the theology students take bioethics classes as an elective.
Okay. And yeah, you answered my other questions already.
Okay, I'll keep
Thank
going.
you.
So community engagement, this is our lecture series. So just here's some examples of the kinds of lectures that we have hosted. There's Jim Giordano with his brain. I love that picture. We've had some really good lectures, and the people who attend the lectures, it's primarily LMU students, but also a lot of faculty members. And then in the Westchester community, I don't know if you know this area at all, but there's quite, it's Los Angeles. This is a beautiful place to come out to dinner in Marina del Rey and then come to a lecture at LMU. So we have a good showing at our in-person events, and it's a combination of community and student and faculty. So our students, this is like a student profile. They're undergraduates who work in, they've done their undergraduate work in like the health science and humanities. We have people who are lawyers, doctors, nurses, priests, who come to our program to get their master's in bioethics, and then they take it back to do what they already do, right? So one category of student is the undergraduates who are going to go on to something else, maybe pre-law, maybe they're going to go to law school, or they're going to go to medical school, or they're going to go to another program and get their PhD. Or we've got people who are already professionals and they're coming back, right, to take this back to the job that they already do. Our students want to add the theoretical perspective to the work that they do. So in other words, take myself, for example, I was a patient subject advocate. I was in the trenches. I was, helping families learn how to argue with their doctors to get certain kinds of care parameters for their kids. That's very hands-on stuff. When I went back to school, I got the theoretical education. I learned that there were actually patterns of thought. There were books written on stuff that I thought I was the only person who ever, thought about these things. And then, here's there's a whole series of academic treatises on it. So especially with bioethics, it's important to understand the theory so you can do the practice, but it's also important to understand the practice so that you see how the theory applies, right? So there's a very interesting tension there. And then this is groundwork for doctoral studies. So, and I would say there's actually, I need to change this slide because I think there's 3 categories of students. We have the undergraduates who are going to go on to medical school, law school, or doctoral work. We have professionals who take this degree back with them to go do what they already do. Then we also have systems people. We have people who work in a system, a health system, a public health system, a hospital policy system, regulatory system, a religious system, right? So that's a little different. So this young students onto more study, professionals who are augmenting their careers. And then we have systems people who are a little bit more hands-on with it. Those are our 3 categories of students. I think every student we've ever had falls into one of those categories. There you go, systems. I knew it was in there somewhere. Okay. Here's a photograph of one of our graduating classes. We're a pretty diverse group. We usually have, like I said, we usually have a couple of priests. We've had a couple of Filipino priests. We usually have a couple of Nigerian priests. I don't know if I have a priest coming up though. That would be sad. I think they add something. I like that actually. Like I said, all different ages, which makes it very interesting to be part of our community. And then also we get to know you very well, right? So we really learn about, it's like a family around here. So we learn everybody's hobbies. We've had quite a few very well-trained musicians in our program. And then we have like this person here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but that's Dan Todd. He was a world champion bodybuilder. I just think that was so cool. So when he went to one of his championship competitions in Las Vegas, he wore his Bioethics t-shirt and we all crowded around the screen to watch him. Then over here, Jared is, he is now in Leuven in Belgium. He got his Master's of Arts in Bioethics with us and then went to Leuven to get his Master of Science in Bioethics, because European bioethics is a little different than American bioethics. And he stayed there and he's doing his PhD right now in Belgium. And then this is Mia. And so she was very interested in the Vedic traditions and Eastern spirituality. She got her Master's of Bioethics and now she's at Claremont Graduate University doing global health sciences with an emphasis on Eastern spirituality. So then this is Dr. Reho. He teaches our end of life class. This is me with my shorter hair, research ethics. This is Astrid. She's at medical school at USC. This is Father Chidi, who Nigerian priest. This is Lorena, who is also a community organizer. Father Julian, a Nigerian priest. This is, what is his name? Oh, I forget. Jason, I think he's in medical school. This is Dr. DeLauro. This is Dan, he's the bodybuilder. He's in law school now. And this is Dr. Brown at the end there. So that was, that's a standard, graduating 6 at a time. That's one of our classes. Oh, 2019, that was our last in-person graduating class. So we're looking forward to having another one. All right, and then there's my contact information. So can you think of any other questions, or is that?
And classes typically start in like mid-August, I'm assuming.
I could tell you, let's see. Yeah, they start usually the last week of August.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't get much of a break. If class ends, like say August 8th, then 3 weeks later is the first class of the next semester. So you get 1 week off after graduation before summer school starts, and then you have 3 weeks off after the last of the summer classes before the fall begins.
Okay, I see. Yeah, and then along the way you answered the rest of my questions. So I don't have any at the moment, but okay. It was great. Really good information.
Good. Well, I'm glad it was helpful. Are you planning? You already live out here since you're UCLA, right?
I live in the Valley again.
Oh, that's right. You stayed there.
I did live in Westwood for a little bit when I was going to UCLA, and then for a bit I lived in like Boyle Heights area because I was working in downtown. Mm-hmm. But since all that ended, I moved back in with my mother.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Are you planning to live locally or?
Yes. I would that would be a commute. Even though it's not really long in distance, the traffic would be quite quite a pain.
Well, so I know, for example, Thousand Oaks is 45 minutes away. So would it be more than that?
Let me check right now, actually, because I am not sure. But the traffic right now must be pretty bad.
Well, yeah, but tell me, at least it'll tell you how many miles,
It
because
says 22 miles, an hour and 3 minutes.
22 miles, oh, that's not bad. But the thing is, our classes are at 7:30. So what a lot of people do, we had some people who lived in San Bernardino. They came out, it was the two Nigerian priests, and they came out together usually around 4 o'clock. They got here by 4. So they completely missed traffic. They got here by 4. And then we have a nice little community here in the corner of U-Haul. We have couches, we have a graduate assistant office, we have a kitchen. So before COVID, our students would come early, like hours early, and they would hang out with us. They would study. I have to say, we had several hot sauce eating contests. And we have games here. We read, we argue, we talk. Or you have to read your stuff somewhere, right? You might as well avoid traffic and come in. And by the way, this is a beautiful campus. So they would just plan on being here by 4 because of traffic. Some were coming from Pasadena, which was really a bear. So they would just get here early. And then when you go home at 10 o'clock at night, there's no traffic.
Yeah. So I just checked. Based on predicted traffic, it would take like 45 minutes. And it says 27 to 29 miles, depending on the route.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's still kind of a hike. But it's not too bad. Not too bad.
The gas prices right now might be, hopefully by that point in time, it'll be better.
Oh, who knows? Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, so the living, I don't know if you've done any exploring on that. Living situation out here is, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, well, you lived in Westwood, so you already know the idea. You probably have to find a roommate.
When I had an apartment in Westwood, there's 6 of us in 1 bathroom.
Oh my gosh, so you know what? There are some apartments nearby. They're called the Deloro apartments, not related to Dr. Deloro. But I think they're expensive. I mean they're 2 room, 1 bathroom, but they're very nice. And I think they're 1,400 or 1,700. I mean, it's a lot each, right? But there's very convenient because it's literally across the street from the university. So, and there's a gym underneath and all that.
Oh, that's nice.
But yeah, I don't have a lot of good advice for you on that one. The good thing is you don't live so far away. You could still do the commute for a while you're trying to figure out if there are other people who needed roommates.
Yeah, hopefully all goes well. I would start looking into that around June, I was thinking. And then go from there.
Are you interested in a graduate assistantship?
I'm actually not sure what that is. Could you explain that?
Sure. So a graduate assistant is a graduate student who works for 20 hours a week. It's like a job. You get a paycheck. You get $18 an hour. It's not great pay, but it just turns out that 20 hours a week at $18 an hour almost completely covers your tuition.
Okay.
So almost, right? And but anyway, we have at the Bioethics Institute, we have 2 different kinds of graduate assistants. We have one that manages our website, and then we have another one that helps us with events. The one that manages our website, that is a 15 to 20 hour a week job, and the one that manages our events, that is a 5 to 7 hour a week job. So let me see, how does that work? Yeah, I think that comes out to about a quarter of your tuition. I don't know. I can't do the math right now. It's been such a long day. But anyway, so there's those two kinds of graduate assistantships. I don't know if you looked at the hub already. Did you?
I have not, no.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen again.
Okay. It's like comparable to a work study, sort of.
Yeah, it is. It's like that. It's like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not work study. Like work study is part of your scholarship package.
Mm-hmm.
This is it's like a job, but it's intended to benefit graduate students who are actually working in a certain field.
Okay.
So let me show you our hub.
Okay.
If I could figure it out, let me see. I gotta do it this way first.
I did actually have another question now that this is
Sure.
kind of on topic. Do you have TA opportunities?
No, we do not. Our program is not a teaching program. It's not a student teacher program.
Okay.
So a graduate assistant, we have specific roles for you. And for example, this is our hub. This is a website that is run by our graduate program, our graduate students, okay? They create these pages of scholarly, of input. Like this one here, this page is based on a lecture that we had in last October. And there's a link to the recorded lecture. Then there's a summary of it. And then there's supplemental resources related to the topic. And then one of our undergraduate minor students wrote an essay based on the lecture.
Okay.
So this is actually like very cool. And this is Flavius, who's our graduate assistant, who is doing this webpage for us the last 2 years. So for example, it makes me dizzy when somebody does this, but the scholarly community, you can see all these different pages that have been created for us. Like there was many different topics over the years. The body to head transplants is a very interesting one. I think Mia did this a long time ago. She embedded some videos about body to head transplants. She wrote an original essay. Yeah, Mia did this, and then there's some supplemental reading. So that's what the scholarly community is of that page. We also have a spotlight where if you go look at this, you can see profiles of our graduate students. It gives you an idea of what kind of student comes here. We've got faculty profiles and alumni and our minor students. And then the international laboratory. Most of us speak a bunch of different languages. I speak Spanish and German. Dr. Laurel speaks German, Italian, Spanish, English, and I don't know, Portuguese. I mean, so there's an international flavor to bioethics that we kind of honor and look at. And then we have, for example, all the bioethics journals, academic journals that you can click on. So anyway, this hub is it's a great resource, but that would be one graduate assistant job if you like that kind of thing. This is a Wix platform.
Okay.
And then the other person who does events also does social media. So it's Twitter and Instagram.
Okay.
So that's something to think about.
Go ahead.
I would say after you're admitted,
Mm-hmm.
that's when we start talking about if you're interested in a graduate assistantship.
Okay. That was the answer to my question.
Well, yeah, because like I said, I'm not your mother. but I can't help but be motherly. If you're doing 20 hours plus a week of studying, and if you're a graduate assistant for 20 hours, that's a good life. The question is, can you afford to do that, right? So that's always the trouble. And if you're a graduate assistant and you have another job, then it's a little tricky to do your scheduling, but you would have to figure that out. The graduate assistant isn't required to be here every day, but they have to be here at least 10 hours during the week. So you could do 5 hours and 5 hours.
Okay.
Right.
Like the days that we have class.
Yeah. And then also you're a student first. And so we're very flexible on, like, if it's finals time, then we're not going to give you a lot of tasks and things.
Okay.
But that's something we talk about later. You just have to make sure you let me know if you're interested, because I'm always in these kinds of conversations with our applicants, because nobody wants to be surprised, and we want to make sure everything is set up as well as possible by the time you get here.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I personally have no experience with like website design or building. Would that be okay?
Yeah, we teach you. Flavius didn't either.
Okay.
So we'll teach you. That's the full-time one. If you want to only do part-time, if you wanted only 5 to 7 hours, so that's social media.
Okay, I definitely have used social media. I know all about that.
Okay, so that's something that we can talk about. We can talk, but that's separate from scholarships and grants.
Yes. Okay.
Because so that's it. And you haven't. Are you going to be applying for scholarships and grants?
I am going to, but I also upon completion of my AmeriCorps fellowship, they give you like 10,000 to go towards schooling. So I actually have not gone into my AmeriCorps portal to like finalize all those things yet, because they told us it was going to be available between like 3 to 6 months once we finish. So it's been like 7 months now. So I guess now would be a really good time to go check that out.
Great. All right, so we can talk about some of these things later. But I would say the most important thing is, like, I know you're intending to put an application in, next week, but stay in contact with me. I will stay in contact with you, and let's just make sure neither one of us is going to surprise the other person. I don't want you to be expecting certain opportunities that are then not available once you get here, right? And it's just better for us to be in very clear, transparent communication so that we know what's up. And if, for example, you were to say, look, I'm kind of counting on that graduate assistantship, right? Well, then that would be good to share with me, all right? Or not, or like, if I really don't need that and I don't want that, because I think the first semester will be hard enough while I try to figure things out.
Yeah, honestly, I do think probably the first semester I would just want to get a feel for it with just the classes. And then from there, I'd probably consider anything else. Yeah, but definitely, I do want to pace myself into it. Since I've never done graduate studies before. So.
Oh, it's so much fun.
And I bet it's a lot of fun. But I just want to I guess get a feel for it. And then as far as I've also noticed, I don't know if this is probably like not really that big of an issue, but when I submitted my recommenders, the request for them to, I guess, to complete it, the system had said I submitted it 3 hours before I actually did. So I don't know if the website's on Eastern time.
Oh, it's not going to matter. Let me check right now.
Okay. Definitely it doesn't make a difference since like the deadline hasn't passed, but I was thinking about that.
All right, let me I can look at your application right now and tell you. Oh, actually, let me see. Denise, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
We should stop recording now. I forgot you were recording, and here I am talking about all this personal stuff with Alexandra.
Don't worry, we can cut this out.
Yeah, thank you. If you just only show the slides show